Happy Easter! Today on Context, a Hollywood power couple on the Easter story and visions of Jesus. What do we make of the stories of people who claim to have seen Jesus? That's next.
Easter, a time of death and rebirth, not just chocolate and Easter bunnies. The story of the resurrection of Jesus inspires over 2 billion Christians worldwide, and it's growing. Today on Context, we talk to Roma Downey, producer of the new miniseries AD, and find out why Hollywood too is banking on this story.
Your leader had a great following. The authorities murdered him. They won't stop with him.
Then, Lorna sits down with an expert to investigate the claims of those who say Jesus has appeared to them.
Our first guest is among Variety magazine's 100 most powerful women in Hollywood. Roma Downey, the president of Lightworkers Media. 100 million people watched the Bible series that she produced, and now the dramatic new miniseries about Jesus and the faith he founded launches today, AD. It begins today, Easter Sunday, and runs for 12 weeks on NBC. To give us the inside story on creating this incredible drama and to tell us more is Roma Downey. Roma, you created the Bible for TV and now AD. I've seen what's airing tonight. I can't wait to see the rest. But from that first episode, I want to start with one funny husband and wife line from your very intense drama. An exchange between Pilate and his wife Claudia. And Claudia says, "Killing him won't be the end of it." Pilate replies, "It usually is, my darling." How was it being a couple working with your husband on this supernatural story?
To get to work together as people of faith on this story, on his story, has been extraordinary. And to get it to do it as a husband and wife has really been a blessing. Loads of fun. And we often joke that the most amazing miracle in the whole journey is that we're still speaking to each other.
Roma, this is a dramatized history of the launching of the Christian religion, and you say this is more than just TV for you. What's at the heart of this passion?
Lorna, it has been such a privilege to be able to bring this story to the screen, and for such a time as this. You know, Mark and I were so shocked recently to read some data coming out of the UK about Bible illiteracy, and that there were actual surveys done that revealed that young children, when asked about the story of Jesus, didn't even know it was a story from the Bible. That they thought that Joan of Arc was Noah's wife, that they thought that Daniel and the lions was from the Disney movie The Lion King, and so on and so forth. You get the picture, and I think it's just such a tragedy that we have moved away from teaching the Bible to our children. One of our hopes with the Bible series, with the film Son of God that we presented last year, and now with our new series, AD, The Bible Continues, is that it's a way to reach a whole new generation with this story that changed the world forever.
Roma, 100 million people watch the Bible series. What can we expect when we tune in to AD now?
I think people are going to be really surprised when they tune into this story. It has never been told on television like this. The first episode will reset emotionally at the crucifixion of Jesus. It's very powerfully done. It's painfully presented, but it's just the beginning. We move through to the resurrection, which is just fantastic, and that an audience will get to feel this in their hearts on Easter Sunday, and it's just amazing. And then there are 12 weeks, Lorna, and we will take you on a journey with the remaining disciples through the dark and dangerous days that followed, because danger lurked around every corner.
Why is Hollywood interested in telling the story of what happened to Jesus after his death on the cross?
Well, I think because first of all, it's an amazing story. And I think that Hollywood is waking up to the fact that there is such a big audience out there wanting to hear this story, hungry for these stories. And we have brought it to the screen in a way that's gritty and realistic and that it's relatable. It's a story of hope. And I think that ultimately we know people are hungry for hope. People are hungry for connection. And hopefully through AD, the Bible continues. They will be able to connect in ways that are profound and life-changing.
We've got a clip from AD. Let's take a look.
Do you think he's coming back? I know he is.
Did you or did you not lie to me?
The Nazarene will rise from death.
We are agreed on what is necessary. He deserves to die!
High priest.
The tomb is now open and the Nazarene is gone.
Very dramatic. The actor who plays Jesus has some big sandals to fill. What can you tell us, Roma, about Juan Pablo, who plays Jesus?
Juan Pablo de Pache is the Argentinian actor that we have cast to play Jesus, and he's just beautiful inside and outside. He has a loving and tender heart. In preparation for this role, he went out into the desert. He decided that he needed to go off for prayer and contemplation, and he went out by himself for a few days just to read the Gospels again, just to get himself into a spiritual and quiet place that he could best be ready to interpret this most important role. He is a young man of faith. We flew his mother in to be there as an emotional support for him when he was filming the crucifixion sequence. You know, it's a challenging sequence for any actor, and we wanted him to have his own mother there, and she said that it was the most moving moment for her, also as a believer, to look up at the cross, to see her own boy going through this, and to imagine what the Lord must have went through. He brings a tenderness and gives us a really very meaningful and deeply connective performance. But Lorna, we also have an amazing cast around him. It was important to us that we cast with racial diversity, so that the cast of AD would reflect the world that we live in. We wanted an audience to be able to tune in and see themselves on the screen. I think we have over 15 countries represented in this cast, and they do such beautiful work.
We hear every day about the brutality facing followers of Jesus in many parts of the world today. 15 countries where becoming a follower of Jesus can result in death or the loss of your children. The horrific reality ISIS has brought. Sadly, AD shows us that this is nothing new. Let's take a look at how you visualize the persecution of the first followers of Jesus.
We're going to die today, John.
You knew this wasn't going to be easy.
So, it's begun. Go again. Press harder. If I've found you, they will find you. There'll be no end to your pain.
Show me how to kill.
In the name of Jesus Christ, be healed.
How do you think the message of AD speaks to the suffering of persecuted Christians today?
Yes, Lorna, you can't help but realize that even though 2,000 years have passed, that in some places in the world nothing has changed and people are still being persecuted for their belief. Look at these early disciples and you will see that because they stepped boldly forward in their love of Jesus, and in their knowledge that he was the Son of God. When you think of the atrocities that they were put through, the only conclusion that you can draw is because they knew he was the Lord. They knew, they had seen with their own eyes, they had felt with their own hearts. So when, all the opposition came up against us, came up against them, the reason that they stood and held firmly was because they knew. Now we look with horror across the world at what is happening with our brothers and our sisters, and we have to stand together as best we can. We have to say, no, this cannot happen. And we as a body have to move forward and do what we can to help.
In the first episode, Jesus appears to his followers after his death, after he was raised. People back then and people today, we would question how that's even possible or why it matters. Why do you believe in the power of this story of Jesus?
Oh, listen, my life has just been impacted in so many ways through loving Jesus and through my faith. From I was a very young girl, and I just know, dare to believe, is one of the themes that follows us on this journey that we have been on, and we do dare, and it is our profound privilege as filmmakers to be able to bring the story of our faith, a story of hope, a story of resurrection, a story of new beginnings, a story of second chances, to a world that is hurting and to a world that needs to be reminded. I think, Lorna, that the faith audience will find AD, but the potential for this series to reach out to people that don't know the story of Jesus, that maybe haven't encountered the story of Jesus. It is our hope and prayer that this will reach all people, and that maybe, just maybe, their lives will be changed by it as well.
Roma Downey, executive producer of the new miniseries AD, thank you very much for being with Context.
Thank you so much, Lorna, and happy Easter.
Can Jesus appear in person to you? Well, Professor Philip Webb gives us some research on that with real stories from people's encounters with Jesus. That's next. Go to our website, contextwithlorna.com, and click on Lorna's books for your chance to win your free copy of Visions and Appearances of Jesus by Professor Philip Webb. I love this book because it gave evidence for my head of what my heart believes, and that's this: Jesus is real. Great research on historical and current encounters with Jesus. Win your free copy of Visions and Appearances of Jesus at contextwithlorna.com.
This segment is brought to you by Bruce Etherington and Associates, Family Harmony and Philanthropy, helping you help others.
Easter morning exists because Jesus appeared and was raised from the dead over 2,000 years ago. At that time, eyewitnesses saw the resurrected Jesus. But does Jesus appear to people like you and me today? Our next guest has investigated the claims, and he says yes. Professor Philip Webb, welcome to Context.
Thank you.
Great. You've got an academic book out with Oxford Press on visions of Jesus from the New Testament to today. But this book that we're going to talk about today is for people like the rest of us. You placed strategic advertisements, starting with the New York Times, to ask people if they had seen a vision of Jesus. What kind of responses did you get to that advertisement that ran in newspapers?
Yes, I got 30-odd responses from people, and they range in their character. Some are like what we would expect the post-resurrection appearance accounts to look like, but others are more trance-like and dream-like in experience. And I put the experiences into 5 groups because they had varied amounts of realism in them.
Okay, you listened to those stories. Let's talk about the realism versus hallucinations. How could you tell these just weren't hallucinations? People were having, like, I think I see something in my cereal.
Yes, yes. Well, I wanted people who were awake, or at least they thought they were, and their eyes were open, and a being appeared, and they identified the being as Christ, and the experience had some great significance for them, and they weren't trying to generate it by certain ascetic practices like abstaining from food or not sleeping or in other ways depriving themselves of sensation.
Okay, because I recognized, I recognized one of the persons in this story because of Hebron Ministries, which is a
Yes.
famous prison ministry. So you had experiences like Ernie Hollins,
Yes.
who saw Jesus in a prison cell, to just the nice mom who saw him at the kitchen table one
Yes.
day. Give us one of your favorites.
One of my favorites, I've got a couple of favorites. I like the story of Barry Dick, who was a student at a Bible college just 15 miles from where I live, and he went to Mount Baker to ski. And it was a bit warm that day. His goggles fogged up, and he went over a 50-foot embankment. That's his estimate. Anyway, when he hit the bottom, the skis shattered vertebrae at the base of his neck, and he was taken to hospital in Bellingham. And on the 8th night, he was awakened by someone standing at the foot of his bed, and he immediately thought it was Christ. And Barry begged to die because his pain was excruciating. And let's call him the Lord. I mean, that's maybe presuming a bit too much. But anyway, the Lord extended his arms toward Barry, and Barry grabbed them. He was instructed not to move, but I asked him, so did you feel your hands touch what you saw them touch? So that requires that kind of a unity or uniformity between visual and tactile sensation. And there's also the movement of the arm. He said it was just like touching an ordinary person.
Yeah, he was completely like wired up. He had the neck brace on in the hospital.
Yes.
He's not supposed
Instructed
to even
not
be.
to move,
yeah. And he was healed,
Yep.
actually.
He begged to die, and in the morning he discovered that he was healed. It took him a day to convince doctors to release him, and within a week he was back running his 5 miles a day or whatever.
You've also got a collection, which is also in the academic book, of how this happened through history.
Yes.
So help me connect the dots. Do we consider those trustworthy?
Well, yes, the issue of trustworthiness is an important one, and it's a difficult one in the whole area of religious experience. A very important phenomenon in the last 35 years or so has been near-death experience. When it initially came out in 1975, people didn't accept it, very skeptical. By the year 2000, that skepticism had disappeared. Everyone conceded that near-death experience does take place, and there were hundreds of thousands of accounts from around the world. So that's what counters skepticism ultimately.
Let's take it to the ultimate skepticism, and that goes right back to the historic person of Jesus.
Yes.
And did he rise from the dead? What evidence is there that those New Testament accounts are scientifically trustworthy?
Yes, so there are two items of evidence. One is that a being is seen after his death that seems to be identical to the one put to death. And I argue in the book that there is a continuing history right through the centuries. Second thing involving resurrection is that there can't be a body anywhere after a resurrection that no one witnessed. It's curious that that's what Christian faith begins with. And this is why I think the shroud's interesting.
Well, and you have had a very fascinating history of your own with the shroud. So here's a bit of science that seems to back the resurrection up.
Yeah.
Tell us why you are convinced that the Shroud of Turin is authentic evidence, that this shadowed body we see on this famous cloth is indeed evidence of Jesus' resurrection.
The markings of blood on the shroud correspond wonderfully to gospel accounts. The second thing, this has been known only in the last 5 years, there are flower images all over the shroud, and seen under ultraviolet light, their shape and character can be determined. They're all from Israel. Third point, most of the pollen on the shroud, it gets embedded from being borne by the wind and so on, but most of the pollen is from Israel. And then the fourth thing I would say is that tremendous mystery about how the image of the man is created, because we can't do that with our technology. It's a bit of scarring of the linen, that's all it is. But the markings are so fine, if it was done by paint, say, it would be a painter using a brush with a single hair and daubing a color and reversing light and dark on a body. That's technically impossible.
I love how at the end of your book, you had to really wrestle with doing this the personal way. You had to say, what were you, and what did you conclude?
Well, yes, the shroud means a lot to me. It might not to others. When I saw it in 2000, I didn't really expect anything. I only went because I was lecturing and people in audiences would challenge me. But something spoke to me, and the voice said, "The resurrection's real, Philip." And it said it just like that, friendly. And then the second was, it was an if-then, which are curious statements. But if this man had such a remarkable end to his life, the very remarkable beginning is possible. And that's when I realized I'd never believed the virgin birth, and I never expected to. I was going to be a Christian without believing in the virgin birth. The creeds didn't have that much power over me, and frankly, the Bible was only slowly growing on me. So that's a very important moment in my life, and he used the shroud to get through, I guess, a thick skull.
All right. And this Easter, what would you recommend we do with the story that Jesus has risen from the dead?
Yes. I think in our busy lives we don't wait enough, but wait on him. He has something special for each of his followers, even if it isn't a vision.
Oh, great advice. Thank you for putting together the visions and appearances in this wonderful book. And we're going to give our viewers a chance to win it on Lorna's books. Thank you very much. Dr. Philip Webb is the author of the new book, Visions and Appearances of Jesus. And Sheldon, over to you now with a question for our audience.
We want to ask you this. Do you believe that encounters with Jesus happen today, in our time? Why don't you send us your thoughts by any of the means you see there on the screen, and you can also call us at 1-800-215-4913. You can also write to us by email at comments@contextwithlorna.com, and you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Context TV.
Coming up, what to do about the mysterious visions of Jesus. That's next.
I'm Rose Meter. I'm a mom, a wife, and an ER doctor in rural Canada. This year, my husband Rob and I have decided to take our 4 kids on a trip around the world. We have no idea what lies ahead. I'll be updating our journey on the Context with Lorna Duick website with blog posts and videos about our triumphs and trials and adventures. Won't you join us?
Here at Context, we love to hear from you, our viewers at home. Recently, David wrote, "Your show is ridiculous. Hopefully no tax dollars are funding this garbage." Well, David, you'll be happy to know that our show is entirely funded by our viewers, and we'd like to take this opportunity to say how much we appreciate your donations to help us share Christian stories. Thank you for helping us make television we can all be proud of. Well, everyone except for David. Coming soon on Context, prayer and meditation. What are the benefits? And why do 1 in 2 people say they use one or the other? Max Lucado, best-selling author, joins us to explain how prayer is a lot simpler than you think. You've heard from Professor Philip Webb about people who claim to have seen and interacted with Jesus. Now we're going to hear from our audience on this. I'm curious, what do you make of this all? Sebastian, you've got a comment for us.
I just find it interesting how Jesus makes himself known when people go through times of turmoil or life-death experiences, and those are the times where you may see these visions or whatnot, or seemingly that's the way that it sounds, or the stories that I've heard where somebody has an encounter where they think they've seen Jesus or they have seen Jesus. It'd be nice if Jesus made himself known to us in a crossroads in your own personal life where he can direct you to sort of be in the path of Jesus in a better direction, rather than just, if you're in a situation where you may...
911.
Yes, exactly.
911, okay. And as you go through all 30 of Dr. Webb's accounts, some of them were remarkable, where a woman was just pouring tea and all of a sudden there was someone at the table. So, well, we have had a remarkable broadcast today on claims of people and Jesus. Stories of some who've had a vision of the Christ, others of a life direction and path planned by Christ, from encounters with a Hollywood power couple to the despairing ill person, and 30 different varieties in between. The evidence we have heard today for a risen Jesus astounds me. The message we heard was that we are loved by Jesus and that Jesus will look after us. What we do with that news is a very personal decision, but I am glad we could give you evidence today of the Jesus who asks to lead your life. I hope you say yes to the offer to make Jesus a very personal God whom your mind and heart can follow and in whom Jesus lives, because that is the news for a happy Easter. For all of us at Context, I'm Lorna Dowick. Thanks for watching. Join us next week for Life Beyond the Headlines. It was a good comment, Sebastian. Thank you. Good comment.
Well, if Jesus came to me in a vision, I think I would be shocked first. And I'll probably ask to see his hands or something like that. And then maybe ask him some questions, because I think I have some questions I'll probably need to ask him and get answers to.
Well, I would say thank you for everything and dying on the cross and make the Leafs win.
It's not too late to send us your comments. Voicemail, email, Facebook, or Twitter. The conversation continues.